Write the sixth root of 64 in rational exponent form. What is the sixth root of 64? So what is rational exponent form, and how do I find the root of any number? My teaching assistant Chloe is here with her latest cheat sheet notes. This first part right here shows you how rational exponent form does equal the radical form. When you have it in rational exponent form, your numerator in your exponent will be inside of the radical sign. Your denominator in the exponent will be the index or the root on the outside. If you are taking a square root of a variable, ask yourself, what is your index? This is how many you're going to have in each of your circles. Then you'll ask yourself, how many circles do you have? This is your exponent outside of the radical. And then your last question is, how many of your variables were not circled? This is your exponent inside the radical. Now that we have Chloe's cheat sheet notes, let's go ahead and start looking at this problem. We have to write the sixth root of 64. Well, first of all, let's just go ahead and write this in radical form. Sixth root means that we're going to put 6 on the outside in the index or in the root position, and then we're put underneath the radical sign, we have our radicand of 64. This is the sixth root of 64. Just like when we do square root, there's really a 2 there, we just don't write it. Square root, this is sixth root. So now we have it in our radical form. How do we get it into rational exponent form? Well, first of all, we have to get what the exponent is on our radicand. And 64 does have an exponent on it. It is a 1. We just don't write the 1. So write that 1 in there temporarily, because when you go into rational exponent form, whatever the exponent is on your radicand, that becomes your numerator. Whatever your whatever your root or index is out here will be your denominator in your fractional exponent in rational exponent form. So this would be 64 to the 1/6 power. So now that we have that in rational exponent form, we can move on to the second part of the problem, which says, what is the sixth root of 64? So if we're going to find the sixth root of 64, the first thing that we are going to have to do is ask ourselves, what does it want from us? When you see anything written like this, with a root on the outside and a radicand on the inside, take your radicand and set it equal to a variable raised to that index or root power. So this problem is essentially asking, what is y? What can you put in for y raised to the 6th power will equal 64? That is what the sixth root of 64 is asking you. So you can just try 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. That would be 1 to the 6th power. Does that equal 64? No. Then try your 2s, then try 3s, then try 4s until you find it. So when I was doing this one, I know I had to do something to the 6th power. So when I did all of my 2s, this actually does equal 64. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32, and 32 times 2 is 64. Now, once we have that, we can go ahead and write it all out like an exponent. This is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 2 to the 6th power. Now, notice that we have this right now in radical form. Let's go ahead and put this in rational exponent form. So when we do that, whatever exponent you have inside the radical on your expression becomes the numerator. Whatever number you have as the index or the root becomes your denominator. 6 over 6 is the same thing as 1. And 2 raised to the 1st power, anything raised to the 1st power is always just the base. So the answer to this one is 2. The sixth root of 64 is 2.